Hey everyone, today we're diving into a topic that people love to whisper but almost never talk about it openly: secret love affairs. Why do people cheat? Why do others stay? And why are some attractive to unavailable partners over and over again? Today, here with me is Yulia, a theta healing instructor and a mindset coach, and we're talking about infidelity. I'm so happy you're here, Yulia.
I'm so happy to.
So, before we start, can you tell us in a few words what is theta healing and how it helps people to transform their life?
So, Theta Healing Technique is a tool that works with your deep subconscious levels of your mind, and it helps you to uncover limiting beliefs and change them into empowering ones. It's a meditative technique that uses different kind of tools, but mainly we focus on changing our brain wave frequency in order to reach those deep levels of subconscious mind and do the necessary changes.
That sound deep.
Yes, it is. It is a very deep work, but also it's like the most simple tool that I have come across because I've been in coaching for many years. And Theta Healing Technique is the most simple tool that I use with my clients, and actually encourage my clients to use it themselves as well, because I teach that technique and it's very easy to apply on your personal healing as well.
Now that we understand what is powerful tool is theta healing, let's dive into romantic relationship. How does it affect relationship between couple?
So our subconscious mind is the driver. Imagine it as if you are the car and your subconscious mind is driving you without you knowing. So it is so important to be self-aware and understand your inner patterns in order to be able to take control of your life. So in majority of people are just led by their subconscious mind. And in theta healing or in deep therapy like that, we uncover the hidden beliefs and we can change the patterns by identifying those beliefs, identifying those subconscious patterns, and then only then we can change the patterns and change our lives accordingly. So going back to your question of how does it affect relationships, our subconscious mind affects everything, every area of our life. So as we have been programmed and whatever we have learned, whatever familiar to us from our families, from our childhood, we will bring it to our relationships.
Okay. So, what are some subconscious reasons why men are cheating?
Well, there are actually a lot of them, and there are so many people and so many different patterns, but we will cover the most common ones today. And number one is the need for attention, variety, dopamine, and novelty. So these people or these men, they're usually searching for a new dose of dopamine because in a new relationship, in a
How
new
it usually
partner.
works?
So variety, the necessity for variety, they get bored very easily. But the root cause of it is that a person unable to handle the pressure, because a relationship, any long-term relationship or any committed relationship, it comes with certain hardships, with certain decisions, with certain boredom, with certain routine. So a person, let us say, who is in a mature mindset or emotionally has matured enough, they can deal with their emotions. But people like that, they still kind of stuck in their childhood traumas, let's say, and they constantly need the dopamine or this experience to cover their pain. It's like a drug that helps cope, or like a coping mechanism that helps cope with their problems, with their hidden emotions, because they're unable to handle it themselves. Does it make sense? Or shall I explain it in a more
I think it's clear, but I have a question. Like, is it somehow related to low self-esteem, or like low self-worth of the men? Let's say.
That's an amazing question because all the cases that we're going to discuss today, or let's say all the members, all the parties of
The love
this
triangle?
circle, the triangle, are actually experiencing low self esteem.
So all three of them.
All three of them, the men, the wives, and the mistresses, they have one single pattern or one single program, sorry, not the pattern, the program, which is I'm not good enough or worthiness issues, let's say.
So they're attracting each other in one triangle, in a one group.
Yes, you can say that, yes.
Wow.
When we're attracting someone similar, we're learning from them. And again, in this podcast, in this conversation, we do not judge these situations. None of the three parties, let's say, sides of that pyramid, but of that triangle, but we are looking at the issue or the problem from the perspective of our subconscious programs, subconscious programming.
Okay.
So there's no good or bad.
Okay. We're not judging.
We're not
just
judging.
Trying to understand why it's happening.
Correct.
And how to change it.
Correct, yes. And how to change it is the most important part.
Okay. So, what about fear of intimacy? Is it somehow related? Why men are cheating? Like, we're talking about men's side right now. Is it related that they're afraid to be intimate with one person?
Yes, and intimacy has a wrong programming in our society. A lot of people believe that intimacy means vulnerability, means weakness, because intimacy means that you are opening up your emotions. So you're showing and expressing your emotional side. In our society, men are used to be brought up to be tough, to be strong, to be, that strong side of the family that can be depended on. And they're kind of programmed that they are not able to show any kind of weakness. Boys don't cry, man up, strengthen up, and all of that. So men are programmed that if they feel that emotional weak or emotion or intimate feeling, it means they're weak. So they kind of go out into the world, cheat to this is their way to disconnect or to have that distance with their partner and kind of bring themselves back to control, if that makes sense.
It is. I'm just trying to process all this information because it's much more easier to think that, like, okay, he is just a cheater. He's like this.
It's easier to judge. Yes.
Also, that's true.
Yes, but if we look in Theta Healing, actually, we look, and especially the masters of Theta Healing, because we do receive a lot of people with different issues and problems, not always moral. And we are taught to look at every issue or at every person from the perspective of pure love, from the perspective of no judgment. So in simple words, this person was once a baby or a child, innocent. So something has brought him up to be that way. So we can't really judge. We can only identify those reasons, those programming, upbringing. Mm-hmm. And again, we don't judge the parents, of course, because everybody just does their best they can. Parentship isn't easy at all, right? So again, there's no judgment.
Okay, but here's a question. Let's say, like, a man understands, like, what the reason behind this behavior, that he's every time trying to find someone new, has a new relationships, new lovers. What he can do, how to say, to be not judgmental, not to be normal, but to stop this behavior.
Well, first of all, he needs to want to stop this behavior, because usually it's okay for them because it's their coping mechanism. They cannot, let's say, handle their emotions in the other in another case. So they're going to be literally forcing themselves
And does
and
forcing
fighting
work?
themselves because, again, subconscious programming or subconscious pattern is something that you do not have the control
cannot
on. You
control.
cannot use willpower to change it. Everything just happens. Like the universe will bring the circumstances in the way that your pattern must be played through. So a pattern, a subconscious pattern, is something that you don't have control over until you feel that it's not okay for you. So again, answering your question, there are some men who feel guilty about it. There are some men who are really in love, in a very deep relationship with their woman, with their wife, or with their long-term partner, but they do have that habit of going around. And if they do feel guilty about it, then they may say, okay, maybe there is a change that I have to make. And then they can willingly try to uncover their bottom beliefs, right? But then again, men, they have to be really, really self-conscious and self-aware in order to go into that work.
Okay. Okay. So we understand, trying to understand, I hope, what happens from this side of triangle. Let's talk, let's focus now about the women's side. For example, why some women are stay in this relationships even after the betrayal. They don't go, they don't leave, and they keep living their normal life.
In very simple words, these people, you're talking about the wives, for example,
Yeah.
or with the ladies in the long-term relationships, because it's not always
Yeah,
husbands and
some of
wives.
them like closing their eyes and like they're fine. They know when their husbands are cheating, and like they're fine with it.
Okay, so there are different patterns. There are patterns or different cases, let's say. There are women who know that something is going on the side, or maybe they're even sure, but they choose not to see, not to bring it up, not to have this honest conversation with their partner because they know that it will not lead to anywhere. They will
Or
not
maybe
make
they're
any.
afraid. I mean, for sure. Like, I assumed like everybody afraid to be in this situation, but maybe they're afraid of changes. Like, let's say it's financial instability, or like they don't want to be alone. Even having this partner who is constantly cheating on her, she's choosing to be with him because it's still better than to be
Being
alone.
There are lots of different reasons. First, as you said, it's financial instability, financial dependence. Women are programmed in our society that they, not in our society, mainly in patriarchal society, that they have to be weaker than the men, and then the man has to be stronger and better and smarter and more income, more
To be provided
yeah,
for
to be
family.
providing. And that programs a woman to be helpless and dependent. So when a woman is dependent, she does not have the word and basically the will to say, I'm not going to choose this, I will not tolerate this relationship, for instance, or this treatment. And then again, it is about self-worth. Remember, we spoke about one single program, the bottom belief, that links all of these that is in common
I'm
for
not
all of
enough.
these. Yeah, I'm not good enough. So I'm not good enough to be the only one for this partner. That's why I have to keep up with that. Like I have to just close my eyes and keep on going.
That's very interesting, actually, because to be honest, before I was thinking like, okay, like if the situation is based on the financial instability, for example, the wife stays at home, doesn't work, and like for sure there is no income. In this situation, it seems it's easy to believe that she stayed with him because she doesn't have any income. She cannot provide for herself. She cannot provide, let's say, for her kids. But there are some situations like where the wife, let's say,
Is an achiever.
well educated, good career, super beautiful, attractive, smart, and in this situation, you can see that it's not about financial situation. So it's actually about I'm not good enough, even when you're an achiever.
Actually, an achiever is a program. Sorry for that. Sorry. But actually, an achiever is a program of a person who is not good enough. And that program that I'm not good enough is motivating them to become more and more successful and achieve more and more and more. So it's not that achieving personality or to be achieving is bad, but we always go into the motivation. What's my motives? Do I want to be better? Do I want to compete? Because competing is always a not enoughness program. So going back to your question, even if the financial stability of a woman is ticked, right, and she's successful in society, she might have insecurities about herself as a woman. Because we also have a lot of programming about what a woman should be for a man, that she should be an inspiration, etc., etc., and a lot of things. Yeah, we it's not the subject for that today, but there's a lot of pressure and tension for a woman of how she should be for a man as well. So she might not be confident as a woman.
Yeah, I get the point. I'm just wondering if men have any of these thoughts like women have, like I'm not.
They do actually.
Seriously?
They do. And actually that's why they cheat, a lot of them. Yeah.
So it's somewhere deep.
Yes, because cheating, or let's say variety, or more women, is kind of validation of being desirable, of being strong, of the feeling that I'm entitled, that I'm successful, everybody wants me. It actually fulfills that void. But actually none of the money or the toys or the, let's say, external stuff will fill that void within that man. So it's, again, quick dopamine. Do you need a definition of quick dopamine? Do we need to
I think it might
define
be
that?
interesting to identify what it is.
So dopamine is a hormone that gives us like a nice feeling.
Chocolate, eating chocolate.
Okay, let's say.
But you have to eat a lot of chocolate to have, like, I think, big dose of dopamine like men have when they're starting.
Dopamine, so when you're scrolling on the phone, you're getting quick dopamine. When you're watching movies, you're getting quick dopamine. Of course, we know that your attention span suffers and all of that, but we're not going to that. We need to understand what it does. Shopping is dopamine. When people need to constantly make that new purchase, and then like, okay, you know, maybe guys who are buying new cars every year. So like it's a new dose of dopamine because there is a void that is not filled. And it's like a little feeling of pleasure, but
very quick pleasure.
Like it wears very quickly. It wears off very quickly. So a dopamine, which is a, I don't know, with a healthy dopamine, is when we do, one of the things that gives us a healthy dopamine is something that when we do difficult stuff. So when we do like something difficult, like a gym workout, like a project that we were procrastinating on, or let's say the opposite of procrastination is doing the hard stuff first. That gives us loads of dopamine, of healthy dopamine, because we start feeling I'm the winner. I'm amazing.
So
And we feel,
is it the same feeling that man feels when he has a new lover,
yes,
let's say?
yes.
Wow.
So what he feels, actually, not only men, women do that too. We do,
But
yeah.
we usually think that men are cheating much more than women.
Okay,
No?
that's a belief, but women can hide it very well.
That's true.
Again, as a person who's done more than 6,000 hours of sessions of private coaching, I can tell you that women don't show it off and they don't speak about it. But there's a lot of women that cheating, but just for different reasons. So today we won't be talking about women cheating, but it happens also.
Okay.
And they also feel that feeling of validation and love.
Okay, that's interesting. And what do you think? How does growing up in chaos or instability affect our our life in relationship? I mean, when we're a child, when we're kids, if we're growing up in this chaos and like there's some instability in a family, parents are not good with each other, does it affect our adult life in
Of course.
later?
So when a child is being brought up in chaos, in maybe even physical or mental abuse, when the parents are very strict, when there's punishment, it all gives a person or a child the belief that I'm not safe to be in my family. I'm not safe to be at home. So it's not safe to build a home with other people. So it is better to be alone. It is better not to have anyone around me. That's a very subconscious belief. So you will never identify it as a pure thought because it's always very, very deep on the subconscious mind. We only uncover this belief in digging because this person with that belief, they will be longing for relationships. They will be longing for a partner, for a family, for a child, but they will not be able to invite this into their life because there's this fear that family means that what I had in my childhood. And my childhood was all around chaos, abuse, punishment, instability, insecurity, constant dramas, and chaos. Yeah.
And what you can say about abandonment? Why does it feel so terrifying to be alone? If we're talking about wives' perspective.
So if we're talking about wives who are tolerating infidelity, tolerating betrayal, knowing that there is betrayal, there has been a trauma of abandonment, of rejection, and maybe physical or emotional abandonment. How to explain it in very simple words? When parents are maybe working so much and the child does not have the time with them, because a child needs to be with their parents. Parents often think that by giving the children luxury life or a better life than they had financially, they think they are serving the child. But actually, the child needs their parents, both of them together, more hours a day, let's say. So, for example, if a mom had to go to work very, very early and a child or a lady or a girl did not have her mom around for many hours of the day, that would be a feeling of abandonment because I'm not important enough. Your work is more important than I am.
So it's not necessary that it should be from father's side.
No. Yeah, that's a belief as well that was created falsely because it can be a relationship both with mother and the father, which can be affecting a lady's relationship with her spouse.
Interesting. Okay, now let's talk about the role that often judged so much.
Right.
The mistress.
Let's talk about the mistresses.
Why some people emotionally choose to be with unavailable partner and not even once. Like I'm pretty sure you have these stories maybe from your clients or people you know. Like I do personally know some people who just jump in from one relationship to another, and it's always with somebody who has another relationship or marriage, and like it's over and over again.
So we already touched upon it a little bit when you asked me about feeling of being alone.
Yeah, that's correct. But I mean, like, what I noticed, like, they're always not so happy in this relationship. There's a lot of pain, but they still keep doing it.
Yeah. So when a person is experiencing, let's say first of all, why do women mistresses choose unavailable men?
Okay.
The first reason is that they're not ready for commitment themselves. They're not ready to build a family because family means responsibility
So they're
and
afraid of
commitment.
responsibility.
A lot of cases, yes. So again, we're touching on the most important ones. And you may think that you're a strong and independent woman, you are successful and responsible across other areas of your life, but here you might be so frightened of responsibility because, again, a family means dealing with not only the good stuff, but also with the bad stuff. And those women who want to only deal with the good stuff, because in a relationship with a married man, for instance, they don't see 90% of the guy's behavior. They only see the good stuff.
When he's happy, come see her.
Correct.
Spend some time, maybe some gifts.
Correct. So a lot of times, this is also a pattern where a person is very critical to themselves, judgmental, let's say. So when a person is
mistress.
very critical to themselves, and again, this is a very low self-value pattern because we criticize. When we criticize, we kind of strive to achieve more. So it's like the program of perfection. So everything has to be perfect. And they are unable to handle the imperfect stuff. And again, those people who go from relationship to relationship, that's their pattern. But let's talk about also drama and chaos, as you've mentioned before. A lot of women with that pattern of selecting either relationships where the partner is unavailable, or maybe you know the cases where it's a long distance relationships or virtual relationships. These women are actually brought up in the chaotic family, in the chaotic childhood, and they are so comfortable that the partner is not staying with them, not living with them. So it's a secondary gain where they kind of feel that like they're in a relationship, but actually they're not.
It sounds interesting because, like, I think it's very comfortable. Sounds like comfortable at least. So you don't have responsibility as a wife. Let's say you don't have to cook, to clean, to do some stuff at home, to be in a good time and in a bad time, and just like you can have some fun and pretty happy.
Yeah, well, there are women who are just having fun. That's one type.
But when they're falling in love
But there's another type which are suffering in those relationships.
and still
And still,
continue.
yes, and they still continue because they believe that this is what they deserve. They believe that this is the norm. They don't believe that they can be number one. They don't believe, actually, this is the same program of the second wives, the second and the third wives. Their belief is in a Muslim culture. They do not believe that they are worthy to be number one, to be selected, to be chosen, to be the one and only, to receive all the love. They're not worthy, and they might not have enough of their infrastructure, let's say, emotional, physical, mental, to be enough for that person.
Oh, okay. With the wife's situation, I think we will not go very deep there because, like, I think it needs more time.
Correct.
But let's say about let's talk about their mistresses who trying to be number one. So they're, let's say, for now they're okay to be in a relationship with a married man, but they still believe and trying to be that number one. They're waiting that the person will leave the family, will marry her, and like she will, I
Wishing
don't
and
know,
hoping.
achieve this to be number one.
There are women who are, yes, who want to take that man from the family. Yes, there are women like that. In that case, this is a program that there is not enough in the world. There's no, all the married men are taken. It's a very common belief amongst women. All the good ones are gone, like they're taken. So I have to steal from someone else in order to get mine. So it's a lack program. It's a program of not enoughness. It's come on, we have like 8 billion people, I think, on the planet. There is a soulmate. There's multiple soulmates for everybody. But that belief of lack, that there's not enough, that's the belief that has to be worked on.
And how to work on it.
Well, again, I use theta healing technique to change these beliefs. It's actually, it starts with intention. It starts with identifying the problem and having like enough of it. It's a decision.
Let's do it on example, maybe. Like, for example, I don't know if you can share for us some story, maybe from one of your clients. For sure, there's no any names, or maybe somebody you know, like who has been in this love triangle, and how theta healing helps to work and change these patterns, these beliefs, and living fully life. Not number two, not being a cheater, not being a wife who has been betrayed.
So it's a very good question. And I remembered the other question that you asked me in the beginning of our conversation. You said, okay, how would the guys change? And again, to change, you have to have the will to change. So you cannot force this guy to stop cheating. But for the ladies, now I'm speaking to the ladies who are experiencing the betrayal or can't leave the man who's cheating, for instance, they have to take a decision to change, because once they change themselves, the guy will change or they will attract another partner altogether. But the guy may change too. For example, if you're a wife, having an experience of a cheating husband, and you identify your programs, and that, like, whatever we speak to speaks to you, right? Whatever we speak about here speaks to you. You know that it's your programs. It's not about him. It's your programs that made you choose this man and this reality. Then we start working on yourself without touching the guy, without even speaking to him at this moment in time, because everything will just go wrong. You will not have the strength to put your boundaries, to set your boundaries, because it's also about boundaries, very weak boundaries. Yeah, what's tolerable and what's not. So for a woman, I would recommend to go into this deep work. For example, it doesn't matter what kind of reprogramming, because again, in the world, there's so much stuff that you can work. There's a lot of tools that you can work on. But again, we're talking about theta healing tool. So you can either learn how to do it yourself. Again, I teach it, or you can come into sessions. And in sessions, we change those limiting beliefs. We uncover the traumas, the first point of trauma. We work on that first point of trauma, because there's always a learning.
And how many points of trauma there are?
Usually it's the first one. So like we need to go to the first point of trauma in order to start
Is it like
the healing.
a cake?
It's
like with the different layers?
It may be like layers, but if we access our subconscious, the deep levels, because what happens? Why do we need to access that theta brainwave? Because we just don't remember our traumas. most of the time. So that first moment of trauma, when this pattern was created, the person will not realize it. They will not remember it. And in sessions, it's like an oh my God, this happened to me. We remember those things because we access in that state, in that meditation, if you will, we access those deep levels of our subconscious mind, and we can recall that first point of trauma, and then we work on it because there's a set of questions, there's a set of things that we need to do with that memory, if you will.
And the question, like, how much time it will take to have this session? Like, does it require to have one session, or like, let's say 5 sessions, so you can reach to that problem?
Everybody is different. For some, it will
An
make
average.
For some, it depends on how many beliefs we have in that specific area of life. For instance, for some people, let's say they have financial problems and relationship problems, and they go into a session, one session for financial problems and one session for relationship issues.
And what the duration of the session?
It depends.
There's
1
no
hour
exact
to
time?
1 hour to 1.5 hours, for instance. Okay. So they can heal their money issues very fast because they might have less programs in that subject, but the relationship wounds might be just more, and maybe it may take more time. But I usually recommend to my clients, and that's what we do with my clients, anyone who would come for private coaching with me, I teach them that technique, because we use these tools in order to help yourself. Because as we go in our life, we meet with certain challenges and pressure and tension and certain situations that bring more and more traumas from different parts of our life. And we need to be able to deal with it. And the theta healing technique, it's so profound and so simple, because you don't have to be a certified coach or like a therapist with huge number of years of practice in order to do this with yourself. You can literally uncover your beliefs by yourself and heal yourself. Mm-hmm. So yes, at certain points when you feel like you can't do this alone, and the trauma is too deep and the wound is too deep, we can always ask someone for help, someone maybe more professional. But having this tool in your kit, let's say, you can always help yourself with emotional situations, because we always feel emotions. It's normal for us as human beings.
Okay, that's interesting. I think about one question. I guess it might be interesting for somebody who's watching us right now. What's the difference between theta healing and, let's say, therapy? I think it might be interesting.
It is a very interesting question.
I know that you were doing your therapy while you were working as a realtor, right?
I did a lot of therapy in my days. I actually started self-healing, or let's say I started self-development 12 or 13 years ago. So I do have a lot of experience. In those 13 years, let's say, I've done a lot of different certifications, because I had a wound, a trauma that I was working on. I was really interested in my self-development and self-healing. I did feel very deep and heavy emotions that I was working on. And in order to heal that trauma, let's say, I tried so many different techniques. So I have a lot in my experience. And that's why I'm saying that theta healing was the simplest way, the fastest way to help heal my issues in order to create the life that I do have now and that I manifested all those years ago. So I wanted, let's say, the life that I wanted. So the difference is...
well, we're not trying to say something is bad or something is good.
Okay, let's say I'm just gathering my mind. So let's talk a little bit deeper into what theta healing is about and psychology is about. Psychology is about personality, and it deals with everything person, if you understand what I mean. Theta healing goes deeper into, let's say, into spirituality and works on the soul level too. So in therapy, we're working with personality, right?
Okay.
There's a lot of moral standards. There is good and bad in a way. Again, there's a lot of different therapists, but mainly we work on personality, right?
Right.
In theta healing, we go deeper into the soul level. We uncover our mission in this lifetime. And when we are connecting to that, let's say, to connecting to our soul, and we understand on a very deeper level what are these situations for, what were our hardships for, what did we learn from it. It's a very different level of wisdom that we understand, that we have, and it gives you a feeling of total freedom. It does work with the personality as psychology, but it also works with the deeper level on a spiritual level. So it is not only working with you as a person, but also working with you as a person in relationship to God.
Okay. If we're talking about the term of duration, let's say how much time the person needs to work, not all of his, but let's say most of his traumas and wounds in theta healing.
And one more question, sorry. One more thing I want to add about theta healing. And the difference between psychology and theta healing is that in theta healing, we also access or learn to access our intuitive abilities. And again, that connection, intuitive abilities, intuition, clairvoyance, for some people maybe, is when you have the knowing, let's say, of the path you need to follow. You have the knowing. It really helps with decisions, because I work with a lot of visionaries in business and in leadership, and it really helps in taking the right decisions, the decisions that will serve you. And theta healing also helps us have that connection with our intuition, with our soul, and eventually with God.
Okay. So back to love affairs.
Yes.
We discussed the side of husband, wife, and mistress. But it came to my mind now what we can tell about people who have never been in any relationships, never married, or let's say never had like long relationships, nothing serious. Why they keep staying alone? Is it also a fear of intimacy, or what?
Again, there's a lot of different reasons. First one is the fear of intimacy, as you mentioned, and the belief that I'm not lovable. Because there's so many people in the world. Why would you stay alone? You want a relationship. Let's assume that you do want a relationship.
So we know today about fear of I'm not good enough.
Yep.
I'm not lovable.
Yeah.
And I
fear
will
of
be not
abandonment.
I will be not the first one.
Again?
I will be not the first one.
Yeah. I don't deserve to be the first one, the number one, the one and only.
Interesting.
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of cases again. We cannot apply a certain pattern with working with different people. Everyone is so different, and that's why we use the digging tool in theta healing to identify what is this situation specifically for this person, and where does it take root.
And how this digging is happening? Like,
it happens.
Is it a session, like you're asking a questions, person answers, reply to you? Or?
So I suggest that we do a podcast where we can do a live session and we can experience. Everybody can just experience it. But in few words, it's a process. So again, theta healing or theta brainwave is reached by means of a certain advanced, if you want, meditation. Maybe you know the monks in the mountains. They meditated for hours in order to access that brain state, that feeling. Theta state, it feels a little bit like you're floating or flying. It's literally a different feeling inside the body. Like you literally feel different. So by accessing that brainwave, we're able to do the changes. But again, how does the session take place? We sit in a quiet room, preferably, and
Music.
we can play music. Again, it's not necessary, but it's the ambience. It gives you that feel of relaxation. The room needs to be dark, but again, it's not necessary.
Should it be online or offline?
We do both now. Now theta healing.
Both of them are effective the same way.
Both of them, they can be effective, yes.
Okay.
And then we close our eyes. We go into that meditative brainwave state. And then in that state, I start asking questions, or the therapist, they start asking questions, specific questions in order to help the person to go to that first moment of trauma and remember that pattern where it began. And then again, it's a form of questions, and then we go deeper into the meditation to do the healing, to do the reprogramming, whatever we have uncovered. So that's a digging session.
Okay, so let's say person see where his pain happens. What's next? Like you also will discuss all these patterns in this session, or like you will give a task to person that, let's say you have to do 1, 2, 3, 4 in a week or in a month, and then you will see how your life transforms.
Well, usually the insight, the aha moment during the session shifts a lot, because then when you identify your pattern and when it's visible to you, then you understand that this is something that has been going for years and I'm going in circles. Then a person has the free will or the choice, if you will, to make the changes. And then again, it's his choice to do the changes or not. Again, situations are so different. Yes, sometimes you need some time to develop some kind of virtues. So, for example, talking about virtues, let's say you being a self-employed or a business owner and you being an employee is two different personalities.
Sure.
So you have developed certain virtues that allow yourself to an entrepreneur. The Anna in the past, or the version of you being an employee, could not have done that. You were just different. You did not have some qualities of your personality or the virtues, for example, that you have right now. So a person needs to learn certain characteristics in a personality in order to make shifts. And that path, let's say, that timeline is different to all.
Okay.
For a lot of people, the changes happen instantly. And that's why I love theta healing so much.
Okay. So let's go back to our love triangle.
Yeah.
If you can advise somebody who in this triangle, what this advice should be, what you should say, like this is first things that you should do or try to do to heal yourself.
The first step is to try to pull yourself out of victim mentality, which means in victim mentality, we always blame somebody. So we blame the man. Or some women, believe it or not, they don't blame the man, they blame the mistress.
I think it's
So-
more common
Yeah,
situation.
so the man is saint, but they blame the mistress. But understanding that every person in that situation bears equal amount of responsibility for the situation is the first step to healing. And then when you have understood that, and when you've taken your responsibility back by not blaming other people, you kind of take your power back. And then with this power, you can take the steps forward, whether you want to do therapy, whether you want to do theta healing, whether you want to take any other healing practices. It's up to everybody. But it is important to make that next step in order to start reprogramming your core beliefs that has created those situations. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you want to add something more else?
Yes, I would like to invite everybody to my classes to learn this method, to be the creator of your life, to identify yourself, because this is the person that you live with all your life, and you need to understand what are your subconscious patterns, what programs are you running, and to take control. So obviously I invite everybody to my theta healing classes. And
I have to mention that Yuda has online and offline coaching.
yes, I do offline and online coaching. And this season, I'm going to do a lot of in-person classes and seminars in Dubai. It's a great opportunity because everything is so much online currently. So it's another way to reconnect back after this COVID period of online everything. So yeah, the most important message is to learn about yourself, identify your belief systems, and change them in order to create your life, your dream life that you want.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. Learn about yourself, love yourself,
Yeah.
and enjoy your life. Live it full life.
The most important relationship is the relationship with yourself. If you have an amazing relationship with yourself, all the relationships in your life will be amazing. So,
thank you, Juliette. That was very inciting. I hope that if somebody who listening to us today found himself or herself in this position, will make necessary steps for making his or her life better and more happier.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been a joy to be here with you today.
Thank you.